Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Talking with Famous People. I'm here with host Eric, ENTP, and myself, Opaloid. I'm allegedly an INFJ. Today, we're going to be talking about the nature of intuition, specifically extroverted intuition versus introverted intuition. So, with that in mind, I'm going to hand over to Eric and ask him what immediately comes to him when I mention those phrases. I mean, what are the differentiators for him?
Well, I think interestingly, maybe we should start with what the conventional definitions of intuition are. Because I think
Hmm.
conventionally, intuition is thought of as making leaps, namely,
Hmm.
seeing a couple of disparate kind of pieces of information, deducing a
Hmm.
pattern from it that says, aha, this is the answer, which generally probably refers
Hmm.
to introverted intuition. But the reason why intuition is hard to define as a single term is because it functions in two capacities. And in the extroverted intuition capacity, it's about ideation, coming up with new ideas. And in the
Hmm.
introverted intuition capacity, it's about knowing the correctness of ideas or the rightness compared to other ideas. It's almost an aesthetics introverted intuition.
Right.
And extroverted intuition is more like uh, is more like brute force.
Mm.
There's a differentiation between them in terms of what they do, in terms of the fact that introverted intuition is action based, whereas introverted intuition is knowledge based.
Mhm.
That makes them hard to combine the meaning in just one word.
Yeah, yeah. Um, for me, how I see the difference between extroverted and introverted intuition is that extroverted intuition is, for me, it's like this. If you imagine a train that's going from different points, but it's laying down track, but it's as though the track is dissolving behind it as it moves to these different points and connects things up. You could swap the train with a deer, which is dancing to these various different points, or you could swap it again with an aeroplane that has a jet stream behind it. So the plane is going to these various what seemingly are unrelated to somebody from the outside, but they are related to the any user. And the jet stream behind the plane is always constantly dissolving and diffusing into the atmosphere as it's moving. So it's as though like a web is being formed and connect the dot, but it's always ephemeral in a way. Whereas the NI seems to be sort of like crunching all these different coordinate points, all this different information, and putting it together as a singular pattern of what those different coordinate points may represent at a deeper level, and then being able to look at that constellation from different angles. And then I said something along the lines of, when I was listening to you talk about any as brute force, my mind went into stuff related to chess for some reason, and chess programs, so chess software. And one of the things with chess software is that they just crunch all the different possibilities that are existent and do analysis on all the different range of possibilities to find what the right move is. Whereas human chess
Humans,
players, sorry,
whereas humans
yeah,
use
whereas humans have
intuition.
been, yeah, using intuition they sift through all of that and just simply go with, oh, that course seems like the most viable one, which sounds quite NI in a strange way, as much as it sounds quite SI, i.e., that you've learned that all of these different routes are going to be fruitless.
And you can
What do you
see
think
how
about
NETI is like a hybrid way of getting to NI in a way. It's
that?
saying, okay, I can intuit the validity of things. So I don't have to go work through the whole argument chain and say exactly why it's invalid. I can sort of go, okay, it's invalid because I can note it out. It's like I can see
Mm,
they misuse a conditional somewhere in there. I can see how they're misusing it, and so The whole thing's invalid. I can just write it off. Uh,
Mm.
there's that ability to note off and get rid of shit with any that with when it's paired with TI especially that mirrors
Mm.
the way that NI works kind of. But instead of finding the instead of going straight to the correct thing, it's able to chunk off big chunks of incorrect things. So by a negative space, find the right thing.
Mm.
Presumably, any does the same thing with FI. I'm not exactly sure how though,
Yeah,
or
that's
maybe it doesn't. I don't know.
yeah. I'm not 100% sure, but what's interesting is I was talking to an INTP here on TwFP who described his process of learning with using TI and NE, and how he basically described having like a block of material, and then his TI is cutting away from that block to create the framework of learning. But then when a new piece of information comes along, he's like he has to start over again with another bigger block because he doesn't know how big a block he's going to have to require for whatever he's going to learn in that moment. So he's constantly having to expand and restart again. But each time that he restarts again, it's easier because he's sorted out that aspect of the structure that he's building. Um,
Because he is
that
building a structure. See, that's the difference between ENTPs and INTPs. INTPs, they
mm,
are building something. It causes them to be intellectually a lot more cautious. It matters to them the thing when they're done with it that it stay put. When the ENTP is done with
mm,
it, we kick it over,
right.
and we
I'm
assume that's how things are supposed to be. Well, I'm done playing with it now. Let's just kick it over. It doesn't matter anymore. And then sometimes it comes back to bite us in the ass. That's part of polar FI where we go, wait a second, I really valued that thing.
mm, mm, yeah, and with regards to NFPs, um,
Well, I mean, they use it as a tool function. The INFPs do. It's way different as a tool function, I think, than as a dominant function. With ENFPs,
mm,
they run the gamut. They ideate a lot, but they don't verify with consistency as a general metric. If they're valuing that sort of thing, like Sauce or somebody else does, then they'll end up mirroring perspectives consistent with that. And so they won't run afoul
mm,
of inconsistency very often because they'll be consistent with the values that are consistent with consistency. But it's like it depends on how they feel about it all. I was thinking, think how difficult it is if you're an ESFP and you're taking a personality test. Now, personality tests online are mostly describe yourself tests. They're saying,
mm,
do you? They don't check to see if you actually do conditional logic well. They go, are you good at conditional logic? And you go, yes, I'm excellent at it. And then it says, oh, you're an ENTP. Well, of
mm,
course, if you're an ESFP, you approach those questions with your tool function. And so the simple thing is, it says, are you this? You use your tool function. Well, let me check. Do I want to be that? Yes. Therefore, yes.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so of course these tests are gonna spit out NTP for all sorts of ESFPs because that's what they
Yeah,
want to be. But they don't distinguish between wanting to be something and actually being something.
yeah. Uh, I think the approach that you're describing is quite an interesting one. I've noticed that on cognitive function tests as well, where it's like, oh, you do this, and like, how well do you think you do it, etc., etc. And it's based upon like the value that you place into that. For example, if I'm an INFJ and you think that I'm an INFJ and all this sort of stuff, I've seen questions where it says, oh, you have these amazing moments of premonition about what will happen and all of this other stuff, and it's as though sort of like, do I? Is that really what's happening? And I was wondering, like, if it's so desensitized because it's something that I just do that I don't actually value it or see it for what it is. Whereas if you had somebody who doesn't do it very well, they might think, oh yeah, I remember that specific occurrence that it happened, and it was mind blowing. Um, so linking to what you said, I wondered if in these tests whether there should be an aspect of actually testing the use of that function as much as testing the value placed on that function.
Yes.
I don't know if you could do it across the board with stuff like intuition,
Well, you
but
could do it with
just
extroverted intuition, but it has to be kind of like an essay question. You have to ask, like, come up with 5 distinct reasons to invade Canada is a great extroverted intuition question, and have it be timed. Um, when you're ready, like when you're ready to get the next question, push start, because it's going to come up, and then you're going to have 1 minute to write in the box, and the question's going to go away, something like that.
yeah,
And then they write whatever they write. And so an extroverted intuitor will just jump right in. An introverted intuitor will go, hold on, switch to extroverted intuition. Okay, idea 1, idea 2. Right? That's how introverted intuitors will do it, because they can do it just like extroverted intuitors can do introverted intuition. It's just not natural for us. We kind of have to shift our. It's almost like you shift your focus of your eyes, so you're not looking at the thing in the foreground anymore. You're looking at the thing in the background. Only one of those things can be in focus, but you're so accustomed to looking at what's in front of you that you have to remember how to shift your focus a little bit. So it's like a snag. Whereas for people who have it low in the stack, they just or somebody like I worked with last night who has extroverted intuition in the 7th slot, he can't come up with anything on the fly at all. They simply cannot improvise.
yeah. I'm also thinking actually along the lines of the impact in the psyche that use of a different function may have. If you're doing something which you just do naturally, it's not going to impact you at all. So it may go completely unnoticed. So you might be like, the proverbial fish swimming in water. Whereas something that happens once in a blue moon, but leaves that indelible impression upon you, is definitely going to be there in your mind. And anytime you come across one of these tests, you're going to be like, oh, yes, I remember that occasion where I did X, Y, and Z.
All right.
Um,
It's going to be like
yeah.
saying, so, if you're asking, like, so when you're up in the air, what do you behave like? And the fish that jumps out of the water occasionally goes, well, geez, I mean, I love the sun. I love the sun, and I love the fresh air on my scales. I love to see the birds flying and stuff. Yeah, I'm totally into that stuff. Of course, the rest 99% of the time, the fish is underneath the water, and they're not experiencing that at all. So the test goes, oh, they must be a bird.
Yeah. That's interesting. With regards to NFPs and any with FI and vice versa, I'm curious if it does have that sort of like aspect of trying to break things down as per TI, or if the FI is naturally gluing stuff together that it comes up with. I mean, what do you think?
Well, for NFPs, naturally, if you have any FI, then you also have SI. And I think it's important to realize that any gets its goo from SI, not from NI. It spits its goo in the same place that NI works for N, right? But it doesn't get its goo from NI. NI gets its goo from SE, from extroverted sensing, what it actually takes in from the world, right? So, but I mean by get your goo from it is like when you come up with something, when you say something and I riff off of it, the link I have is to something experiential, something I've maybe said before, heard before, did before, some weird associative link that's very discordant. It's not natural, like obvious link. The natural obvious link would be falling more in the category of NI. If I make a connection, well, Mary had a little, and the answer is lamb. Well, that's NI. Mary had a little, and I'm thinking about Mary, my aunt from a long time ago, had a little box of chocolates because she'd always eat this box of C's chocolates. Had an Aunt Mary. It's just what I came up with right now, trying to come up with an example of that. So
Yeah, I get you.
so, but if I don't make explicit all the associative connection links, it sounds like it looks like magic a little bit. Like, where's it coming up with all this random shit from, right? Because I'm never making the associative links explicit, but they all do have a brute force step by step kind of process within them, that NI tends to skip a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, because when you brought up Mary had a little lamb, um, I mean the obvious answer was lamb to finish that sentence, but then where my mind went was linked to innocence and lamb representing innocence and Mary representing some savior figure or something like that. And then from that, my mind went into INFPs and the video that we did last time and the lamb to
So
Mary.
you're linking all to universals, except for the one link to yourself is the video we did last time that you and me did. But even that, it's referenced as an object that is existent outside of us, and the fact that we did it is sort of a secondary afterthought. Whereas what I link to is something. Well, let's see. What Mary do I know? Oh, I don't really know any Marys. Well, there's Aunt Mary from when I was a kid, old Aunt Mary.
Yeah, whereas I'm not thinking in that I'm not thinking in that way. I'm thinking in more of a representational frame of sort of what's going through my mind is Eric's mentioned this. What does that mean in the context of this conversation? What does Mary and the Lamb represent, etc. And I'm sort of like I can. It's very very slow, but I see sort of like a compacting occurring, sort of like, yeah, what's really the key underlying thing that's there that is being zoned in on, whereas yours seems to be like Mary had a little lamb. Oh yeah, Mary, my aunt, and then you could go off into tell me.
Yeah, she smoked. She was, in my mind, she was the aunt who smoked cigarettes and ate chocolates all the time. She was just like 95 years old. Until the day she died, she smoked cigarettes and ate chocolates all the time.
Yeah, whereas me, when you just said when you said the chocolates, and maybe this is any, I'm not sure. My mind went into Forrest Gump, and then Forrest Gump was linked with innocence, which was linked to the lamb, which was linked to Mary, which was linked to the character.
That's still NI because, well, those links are external, right? They don't have any experiential thing really. You've seen Forrest Gump, perhaps, but you're linking to a universal symbol, like something that other people can reference too. But I'm linking to something that's particularist to my experience that other people can't reference. The only way, and then I use FE to make it universal. So I tell the story. So I'm telling a personal story, but then I'm also saying, see how I'm saying how I get my goo and spit it into your area from a different angle? That makes it universal too. Now I'm saying, okay, here's how it applies to other people. So I'm not just talking about myself.
Yeah, as I'm listening to you talk about goo. Let me be inappropriate. I keep thinking of extroverted intuition cum shots. Like,
oh well, yeah. I mean, but the thing is,
have another little bit. Like,
it's what you get your goo from means like you're getting your goo when you're using your version of extroverted intuition. You're getting your goo from the world, like Forrest Gump and this other video that we made, and these objects, these entities of ideation, and I'm getting it from my memories, and so. That's one of the key differences. But the thing is, we operate well together as a pair because I want my particular experience to be converted into universals. It's kind of part and parcel with my hidden agenda. Like I want myself to be made universally accessible to others so they can say, "We appreciate this, Eric. We like you." And then I think for you want your intuitively known truths to be rendered as logically valid as much as possible. That's your hidden agenda. So we're both operating all on metaphysical planes here, except for where we get our goo from. I get it from SI, my own particular experience. You get it from SE, your senses.
Yeah, I can't remember the two things that you just said, but you said sort of like your hidden agenda is for it to be universal and for you to be liked. Is that right?
Yeah.
Something...
Yeah, to take my particular, render it universal, and say, here's me in a communicable form. Do you like it, everybody? Do you like me? Therefore, because I have kind of this iffy sense of self. Otherwise.
Yeah. Well, I like you, Eric.
So, thanks, Opaloid. I appreciate it.
I'll put that out there. I wanted to share something else, which was coming to my mind, linked to the Mary thing. I don't know if you noticed it yourself, but what I noticed is you brought this thing like Mary had a little lamb, so you put it into the space, and it was here, and then there was a tangent with Mary the aunt, yeah, and then there was a tangent with the chocolates and the smoking. And did you notice that I kept on trying to gather it back into um, this central core aspect? So yeah, it's to do with innocence and to do with providing shelter or guardianship or whatever it might be. And hey, look, Forrest Gump, innocent character. I think his wife or something like that is, and or his mother has box of chocolates in it or whatever. So there's that guardianship aspect that's been brought back in, and this happened on various different occasions in conversation with you. That I experience you as spinning off in these various different directions, but I'm sort of like gathering you in and making you sort of like keep in one place to then have something which is solid to then outlay to others.
For sure, that's part of it. What you're talking about there in terms of the sort of metaphorical or archetypal links, the innocence, the Mary, the Forrest Gump stuff, that is NI stuff that I sort of note and then ignore basically. As my functions would indicate, I would. I note it and think, yeah, that's cool too. That's cool that it links to those meanings. But then I bring it back to the central thing by way of going, so that's how it works mechanically. With basically using my tool function and saying, okay, Eric, don't forget, you're not just SINEFing here. You got to throw some TI to make it legit. And here's how it links mechanically. And here's the general principle that I've demonstrated here, right? But you're saying, and here's how that general principle demonstration, here's how it links to broader universal meanings like innocence and Mary and motherhood and all these other things, which it does. And then how it links back to your type, or which is how it links back to the audience's selves.
Yeah, you were slightly distorted, so I didn't catch all of that. So can you just repeat? I heard the last thing I heard was universal, linking it to motherhood.
Right. So when you do that, you bring it in a way that's accessible to others as an external. And then when I give them the mechanics thing, where I give that, it's accessible to others as an external on a logical level. When you then say, here's the, and here's, now we're talking again about INFPs. Here's how it applies to you as an audience member. You're helping the audience member then link to an SI kind of experience of it, or an SIFE experience of it. And so basically we're hitting more values that are implicit in the 8 functions than we did before. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, it's cool. I was just going to say, you know how in the same way that you said that you're sort of like aware of you're aware of the NI sort of like underpinning core theme, but then there's an ignoring of it. I never really realized before, but the same thing is happening with me, where you're going off on the different tangents, whatever it might be, and I feel like I'm sifting them to see how I can gather it back into that core topic. So it's like, oh yeah, that's great, Eric. You have your tangents. You can fuck around all you want, go off on your rambles. But hey, what about this? And then it's like, what about this? And have you noticed what you're describing is another aspect of this? Oh, and it's another aspect of that. And I would say in our interactions and the way that these videos work, I think you, as you said last time, you're spot on. You're on the nose because you see what I'm doing. Because I think I have got the audience member or viewership in mind, whereas I'm thinking like, okay, he's relaying all of this. I'm coming up with this. Like, how is that going to translate for the person that's viewing? And it's as though projecting into the future, I've got like the audience member in my mind, and I'm like, how can I translate what's being shared in this interaction, and then crunch it into a digestible format?
But
Whereas I get the sense.
Opaloid, hold on a second though, because you know what I'm thinking right now? I'm thinking, how are those kids at work going to think when I don't show up for work? I'm running late. I've forgot about the time. Enjoying talking with you as usual. So I should have left 6 minutes ago. I got to bail.
Right.
And this is a good time for you to suddenly cut out.
Oh, we do stop recording.
Yeah, we're gonna stop it right now. But go ahead and do a little outro. Oh yeah, please do like and subscribe and go to the store would be great, or Patreon.
I was going to say, yeah, subscribe, like, comment, share, etc. Yeah, we'll be interested in what you have to say about what we've just shared. So,
see you later, everybody. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to eat plenty of cheese.